Hi guys, I'm Elephant. Today I want to share the recap of a fantasy battle anime, the second season of Record of Ragnarok. The goddess summons the most powerful human to the god realm, where he makes a plethora of goddesses his harem. Even the toughest Valkyrie is drawn to him by his power and falls head over heels in love. The fate of all humans will be decided by the man's subsequent combat with another powerful god. According to a legend, the gods meet in Valhalla to decide the future of humankind once every 1,000 years. Ragnarok, a last battle between gods and humans, is the idea put forth by Valkyrie Brynhildr. 13 representatives each from the gods and mankind will engage in a one-on-one contest. Humankind will become extinct if the gods gain 7 victories before humans do. Humans can continue to exist for thousands of years if they first achieve 7 victories. God triumphed twice in the first season's narrative, but humankind only managed to triumph once. In the fourth battle, Jack the Ripper represents humankind while Heracles represents the gods. As soon as the battle begins, Jack the Ripper flees. This cowardly behavior is despised by Heracles. He catches up to Jack only to set off a trap that Jack has placed. Heracles receives numerous dagger blows. Yet, Heracles cannot be harmed by these daggers because human weapons are powerless against the gods. To harm Heracles, Jack must utilize the weapon that Valkyrie transforms into. A big pair of scissors that fits Jack's persona well serves as his weapon. Then Heracles fights Jack and breaks his big scissors. Jack has to stab him with his dagger once again. Still refusing to dodge, Heracles is stabbed with a dagger this time. Jack the Ripper is chosen by Brynhildr as a human candidate since he is cunning enough. The weapon that Valkyrie has transformed into is later shown to Heracles to be Jack's pocket, not a pair of giant scissors. Any weapons Jack pulls out of his pocket can hurt Heracles. But it doesn't mean that he can defeat Heracles even if these weapons can hurt him. Heracles knocks Jack off with his weapon in a single motion. After being launched into the air, Jack appears pleased and unfazed, intending to defeat the formidable Heracles. The Greek god of battle, Ares, thinks Heracles will certainly triumph. The young Heracles of ancient Greece was a skinny boy. He lacked god's might at the moment, but he did possess a strong sense of justice. He would unquestionably put a stop to anything unfair when he saw it happening. Heracles was courageous, but he was also too frail and frequently got hurt. Later, he was instructed to sip the heavenly wine made from Zeus' blood at the temple. According to legend, people who consumed the divine wine would either gain access to the god's powers or, if they were not true heroes, they would face death. Friends of Heracles prevented him from risking his life since they didn't want him to die. Heracles grew into a strong team. The gods were discussing humankind's fate in Valhalla during this time. The gods resolved to preserve humankind at that gathering, but, since people were guilty of many crimes, the gods decided to punish them. As a result, Ares, the god of war, sent his army to Earth with the goal of punishing a city. Heracles resided in the city. Apart from Heracles, who was attempting to repel Ares' army, everyone in the city was devastated and was patiently waiting to die. Yet, Heracles was still immortal, and Ares had little trouble defeating him. Heracles was prepared to lose. If he lost, he would sip on the divine wine that he had brought. Heracles wanted to stake his life on the chance to confront Ares. After savoring the divine wine, the valiant Heracles remained alive. He was successful in obtaining God's strength. Then, after defeating Ares' army, Heracles bounded the god. Zeus abruptly intervened to break up their argument. Heracles was to join the gods. According to Zeus, Zeus's request was granted, but Heracles added a stipulation that God could not manifest himself among humans. As the son of Zeus, Heracles then attained the status of god. Given that he had fought Heracles, Ares is confident that Heracles will triumph over humans. Once more attacking Jack, Heracles breaks his glasses. Jack then made his red pupil visible. Jack has pupils in different colors, and one of his exceptional abilities is the capacity to see the hue of emotions. His red pupils exhibit this talent. Jack was a severely underprivileged child who frequently retrieved food from the trash. Nonetheless, the owner of the trash occasionally beat him. The hatred that individuals harbored for the impoverished was evident to Jack since he had the capacity to see emotions. Although most people despised impoverished Jack, Jack wasn't depressed because he could see his mother's most beautiful color, the emotion of love. Her mother was the most stunning woman in the world to Jack. Yet everything changed on this day. When Jack's mother learned of a playwright's marriage, she collapsed. The playwright was none other than Jack's father, who had previously vowed to wed Jack's mother once he achieved fame but instead wedded a wealthy woman. Jack's mother gave birth to Jack just to marry Jack's father. She gets malicious towards Jack as a result of Jack's father marrying someone else. Just like everyone else, Jack attacked her mother fiercely because, in his perspective, his mother's color changed from beautiful to hideous. Jack then noticed a completely different color, the terror of dying humans. In order to appreciate this hue, Jack became a cruel ripper because he believed that the color of this feeling was more beautiful than any other colors. but Jack only sees the hue of love in Heracles, and he longs to witness the transformation of love into fear. Then Jack abruptly climbs a bell tower, which Heracles promptly demolishes, resulting in Jack falling from the bell tower. The bell tower's enormous dial is falling along with Jack. Heracles rushes out to block the dial, but his hand is cut off before he can. All the gods are astonished since normally Heracles can't be injured by human things. Only Loki, who is equally cunning as Jack, can anticipate the truth. It turns out that Jack's pocket is only a cover. Jack's gloves, not his pocket, are Valkyrie's weapon. Jack has the power to transform anything he touches into a weapon that can hurt God. Heracles shows no fear. Even if he loses a hand, he dresses his wounds and is prepared to fight again. Heracles still has the hue of love. As Jack discovers, Jack is informed by Heracles that despite his transformation into a god, he still loves humans. Then Heracles applies more powerful techniques. In exchange for enormous strength, he uses his life force. Heracles must defeat Jack quickly or he will die first because of this skill. In an effort to stall Heracles until his life force is completely depleted, Jack starts to flee. But as Heracles gains speed, he catches up to Jack and seriously hurts him. Then Jack snips off a building and makes it dives in Heracles' direction. Yet Heracles avoids death by being crushed. Jack grabs a stick and a plank out of desperation and uses them as swords and shields. Jack engages in hand-to-hand combat with Heracles rather than fleeing. Heracles appears to have won the battle after directly smashing the sticks and planks. Everyone who is witnessing this battle believes it. Devastated, Jack picks up an iron tool and stabs it at Heracles. This appears to be Jack's final assault. Heracles, though, deflects the blow and gets ready to thwart Jack. At this time, Jack suddenly stabs Heracles in the chest with both of his hands. It turns out that Jack has blood on his gloves, which he can use as a weapon to hurt Heracles. Heracles still has the opportunity to kill Jack first, but instead, he embraces Jack and promises to always love humankind. Jack doesn't notice Heracles' tinge of fear until the very last second. All he sees is the hue of love. Jack has won the fight, but there is no joy in his heart. At this moment, Jack is completely struck by Heracles' love for humans, and he begins to reflect on his past behavior. On the other hand, Heracles is the real winner. He represents human goodwill and ultimately triumphs over human malice. The gods are furious after this battle. They have never before envisaged a circumstance in which mankind truly achieved two wins. Also, Buddha intrigues Loki much. Similar to one of Buddha's abilities, Valkyrie may morph into artifacts and battle alongside humans. The fates of two people can be combined using this technique to create incredibly potent powers. Loki thinks Buddha did Valkyrie a favor. The Seven Lucky Gods, a group of Japanese gods, arrive about this time and aim to disturb Buddha as well. Buddha is unfazed and decides to go up against Loki and the Seven Lucky Gods by himself. When the human players notice Buddha under attack, they rush to offer assistance. In the end, the conflict did not start. Odin and Zeus emerge out of nowhere to stop them. Not daring to defy the two god monarchs' demands, Loki and the seven lucky gods immediately depart. Buddha is then cautioned by Zeus to stop helping others. Buddha, however, has no fear of the god king, views Zeus's remarks as a joke, and has no intention of changing anything. The fifth battle between gods and mankind is about to start. When it comes time to alert the human participants, Brynhildr is prepared. She doesn't anticipate that the competitor is currently hooking up with a number of goddesses. The goddesses are promptly chased away by Brynhildr, who then awakens the human competitor. The strongest sumo wrestler in Japanese history, Raiden, has captured the attention of innumerable goddesses. Raiden believes Brynhildr has fallen for him and demands to sleep with her right away. Thrud, a more powerful Valkyrie, is assigned as Raiden's mate when Brynhildr swiftly rejects Raiden. Thrud believes Raiden wouldn't like her since she doesn't look like a girl and is too tall and powerful. But the powerful Thrud instantly captures Raiden's heart. Thrud experiences male adoration for the first time and falls in love with Raiden right away. The fifth combat is about to start just after that. This time, the combat will take place in a very distinctive setting, the sumo arena. Shiva, the most powerful god in Indian mythology, will be Raiden's opponent. As part of the sumo tournament tradition, Raiden scatters a little amount of salt into the arena prior to the start of each battle. Shiva and Raiden are going to fight intensely. Shiva initially despises Raiden because he believes he would triumph easily. Raiden suddenly pushes him aside with a kick. Shiva eventually becomes serious when Shiva senses his strength. Then Raiden continues to strike Shiva repeatedly. Shiva isn't immediately defeated as Raiden expected. Instead, Shiva fights back. After a brief fight, Raiden and Shiva each acknowledge how challenging the other is. Yes, for the first time, Raiden will use all of his strength in this battle. Back to the 18th century in Japan, the inability of their son, Raiden, to stand by the age of 3 stressed a couple out, because infants can usually stand by the time they are 1 year old. At first, they speculated that Raiden may be handicapped, but, after a while, Raiden abruptly stood up, but he then fractured his entire body. Yet, Raiden's fracture was not caused by his bones being overly fragile, because Raiden's muscles were so strong, they directly crushed the bones. But as he grew older, Raiden progressively discovered techniques to reduce muscle strength. This is how Raiden has been suppressing his muscle strength for his entire life until Thrud becomes the new bones for Raiden today. Thrud's assistance allows Raiden to finally unleash the full might of his muscles. Shiva is once more knocked aside by Raiden's all-out attack. Shiva, the most powerful god in India, will not be beaten easily. Of course, he starts to fight back right away, injuring Raiden. Shiva then has one of his hands broken by Raiden. Shiva experiences a sharp ache, but rather than being alarmed, he becomes even more excited. Shiva fights back against Raiden once more, with their heads smashing against each other and both of them heavily bleeding. Shiva is reminded of that experience from thousands of years ago by the thrill of a violent battle. In India during that time, there were countless gods. Shiva and his best companion Rudra were unknown gods at the time. They enjoyed dancing and fighting, and they engaged in god battling virtually daily. Shiva was willing to help Rudra achieve his goal of becoming the most powerful god in all of India. They accrued more and more gods' worship by vanquishing more and more gods. They were positioned on India's tallest mountain when they had vanquished all the gods. But, as there was only one god who was the strongest, Shiva and Rudra would eventually engage in combat. Rudra had to fight Shiva in order to realize his goals. They battled for a very long period, and their sweat even created a rainstorm. Shiva ultimately had the upper hand, but Rudra was not ready to give up. Shiva gave up the fight because he feared that Rudra may perish if he persisted. Rudra, however, was aware that Shiva had actually prevailed. Therefore he refused to accept Shiva's concession and declared Shiva to be the most powerful god. Since that time, Shiva has stood in for all Hindu gods as the embodiment of their majesty. All the Hindu gods are now observing this battle. Shiva is aware of their support, thus he cannot afford to lose. Shiva then immediately executes the maneuver he previously used to defeat other gods. He starts dancing and attacking Raiden. Shiva's dance avoids Raiden's attempts to fight back. Shiva not only dances, but as he does so, his strike speed also increases. Raiden is being attacked by what seems like an infinite number of foes at once, and the only defense he has are his muscles. Shiva flies into the air and strikes Raiden forcefully, puncturing his flesh. Everyone believes Raiden will lose, but Raiden is aware of his other strategy. Raiden laughs as a result. When the other sumo wrestlers witness this scene, they realize that Raiden is about to turn serious. Although in the past Raiden managed to restrain his muscular might, he still possessed a monstrous appearance. Everyone in the village treated Raiden like a monster, despite the fact that he could easily defeat the strongest guy there. Raiden was dejected since he couldn't figure out what made him different from everyone else. According to Raiden's mother, immense power entails enormous responsibility. He can earn respect and affection as long as he can use his might to assist the weaker. As a result, Raiden started using his might to assist the locals, and over time, he grew into a good person. The nearby villages were almost completely destroyed on this day by a volcanic explosion, which left Raiden's community in abject poverty. Due to a lack of food, many communities were in need of assistance. Raiden then left the town and moved to the biggest city in Japan at the time to pursue a career as a sumo wrestler. Being a sumo wrestler, Raiden could make a lot of money, which he intended to use to aid the villagers. In the village, Raiden was never up against a formidable foe. He was anxious when he initially got to the big metropolis that he would unintentionally hurt another sumo wrestler. Raiden was swiftly defeated as a result, and it was at this point that he realized he lacked tactics. Raiden was overjoyed to be participating in sumo for the first time. Raiden mastered every sumo move in the following few days. No one had been able to defeat him by the time he began fighting in the official sumo tournament. Raiden only needed one move to defeat his opponent in each match. The village had ample money after Raiden swiftly rose to fame. Yet as the fight went on, he discovered that his opponents started to treat him like a monster once again. Raiden's mother advised him to help the weak instead of bullying them and to use his might for their benefit. Raiden therefore never used his finest moves once again in order to avoid hurting weak opponents. Of his 285 sumo matches, Raiden only lost 10 of them. These 10 games were all forfeited by Raiden because his opponents were too weak. Raiden never applied his entire might during any of these races. Until today, Raiden may use all of his strength in battle. With one palm, Raiden smashes Shiva's 2 arms using his greatest technique. Shiva might have lost his life if he hasn't used his arm to block it in time. However, Raiden's body will also sustain significant damage from this move, which has severe side effects. Shiva is in critical condition, yet he is also enthusiastic, because he had never before faced an opponent who would allow him to unleash all of his strength. Shiva has to be careful not to murder other gods when he battles them, but this time is different. Shiva can now experience the rush of a full-out battle. Shiva then envelopes Raiden in flames, and while each strike has the potential to burn Raiden, Shiva must also endure the torment of being scorched. Shiva and Raiden each use moves that have severe negative effects, and they must both outlast the other in the least length of time. Compared to the agile Shiva, Raiden's motions are ungainly since he still adheres to the sumo regulations and forbids touching the ground with his hands or knees. As a result, Raiden experiences greater side effects. The last attack causes Raiden's arms to be broken. Raiden is aware of his defeat, yet, near the end of his life, he smiles contentedly because, for the first time, he engages in a thrilling combat with all of his might. Shiva has great respect for Raiden, but he must kill Raiden to emerge victorious. Shiva then kills Raiden to win the fifth duel. The sumo wrestlers, who are watching the battle, bid farewell to Raiden with the highest etiquette. Shiva triumphed, but he also lost 3 arms. The outcome has stunned every god. Zeus is forced to concede after this fight that humans are more powerful than he thought. He begins to fear that the gods will lose, so he requests that a strong god like Buddha take part in the upcoming contest. Buddha doesn't agree or reject it, but it appears that he desires to do more to support mankind. Buddha first appears as a god before the 6th duel starts, but, as soon as he arrives, he immediately grabs the host's microphone and declares to the audience that he would be addressing them on behalf of humankind. This concludes the story of the first half of the 2nd season of Record of Ragnarok. Both duels are very striking. Heracles stands for humankind's better nature, whereas Jack the Ripper represents humankind's darker side. Heracles ultimately lost the duel, but he did so by demonstrating that good may ultimately win over evil. Raiden and Shiva's fight was incredibly energizing, because they are true warriors who value the act of fighting more than the outcome. Whoever prevails in the end will be the best outcome for them. I'm sure the latter half story will be much more thrilling, and now I can't wait to see the next duel. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy the story. I will make the recap of the next half story as soon as it airs. See you in our next anime recap.